Yep, okay.
And you guys can see but you can see the agenda, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Good evening. This is the March meeting of the Norwalk Parking Authority. Our agenda is on the screen and we'll begin to move through. The first portion of the meeting is public comment. And please note that the time that we ask that everyone adhere to, it's just 3 minutes per speaker. And also just be reminded that this is a point in the meeting where we hear your presentation or hear your words, and we take that into consideration for future meetings as we move forward. So feel free to make any public comments if there is anyone from the public, and then we will gather your words and discuss them and address them at a future meeting.
If anybody would like to speak, can you please raise your hand electronically? It does not appear that anyone wants to speak, Eric.
Okay. All right, terrific. Thank you. So moving on from the public portion of the meeting, item 2 is discussion actions related to the previous meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pam. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Unanimous. So the minutes are carrying. So the next item is the financial and operating report.
Okay. Hi, Eric. Thank you. Ryan, I'm not sure if Rocky is back to his computer or still in the car, but Rocky, you want me to pull it up?
Yes, Todd, can you pull it up, please? Because I'm still driving. I'm stuck in traffic.
Okay, let me share my screen.
Excuse me, Jim, you're going to have to stop sharing so Sathy can share.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So from a budget perspective, overall revenues up for the month and year to date. In the monthly category of revenue gains, we saw gains at Webster, Main Street Lot, East Norwalk, offset a little more than offset by South Norwalk Railroad Station, the Maritime Garage, and Yankee Doodle. Transient was just about on budget. Gains at South Norwalk Railroad Station Lot, Haviland Deck, Main Lot, and East Norwalk, offset by Maritime Garage, Webster, and the North Water Lot. Meters and violations, there are both over budget. Expenses are under budget, both for the month and year to date. Compared to last year, revenues up 3 points is year to date, is up almost 4%. Violations are actually down almost 14% from last year to date. And all other revenue sources are expenses compared to last year to date are actually favorable. They're lower. And I'm sorry I'm going so quickly. There seems to be a lot on the agenda. And the variance report we can move to. Let me see if I'll enlarge this a little. So the variance report again reports variances that are 20% and 5,000 off compared to budget, either positive or negative. Meter revenue is up for the month. We've seen increased activity, and we've also had more meter bag payments that was collected in the office. Violations are up. We had increased collections coupled with decreased compliance. Compared to budget or last month, it was about almost 94,000, but we're seeing, revenue is higher, but people tend to be paying a little later. So therefore the average citation is a little higher. And on the expense side, we've some of these are holdovers, and you're going to see probably every month until the next budget cycle. But this is the budget line item on security services, straight lined as part of our allocated expenses in the budget. So when these quarterly payments come through, it throws off the variance report. And that's the same. Let's see, with on the equipment expense, again, that was the vehicle cost that we used to run through there. So we deferred that during COVID, and now we're assessing whether it makes any economic sense to look for another one. We did some preliminary review, and it seemed like we might be able to just keep one of the older vehicles because it's still in good working condition. So we're going through that now. On the service contracts, we just had a non-budgeted expense to Dixon Consulting on the RFP job they were doing, and a few other invoices were in there, Calais and IPS as well. Snow removal, good sign for us. No snow still in February. So that remains positive. Signage, which I spelled wrong, is that was for wayfinding signs in the East Norwalk lots. And the parking program is the marketing firm that's working with redevelopment. No payment was made this month.
Staffy, if you could just stay there for 1 second for the board, I just want to update them on a couple of different things for this. So folks, we've been spending a considerable amount of time meeting with Laz to review the expenses. In our desire to do like major improvements, like the signage, like the facade improvements to the Yankee Doodle Garage, we're really doing so with the intent to try not to bond funds. So we've been really monitoring the expenses relatively closely. Things like the equipment expense, where Staffy was talking about the vehicles, right? I went through an inventory of all the vehicles, what we have. In prior times, we used to have a customer service vehicle that went out there, right? But that's not been getting a lot of use. We also went through the expenses that have been paid to some of the older vehicles, and we're not going to take them out of service right now because we just went through some pretty hefty, in some instances, some hefty repairs, right? So we're gonna monitor what those are. Probably not put large amounts of funds back into those, and rather use the customer service vehicle to reposition that in enforcement or where it needs to be at the time. And kind of let them, let them play out a little bit, because I think we're a little heavy on the fleet, right? So I think we just want to reposition it to be the right number of vehicles that are out there and honor what we have without adding additional one to the fleet at this time. So we'll probably continue to see that go. I think the other issue is the signage. We made a decision to look at new signage for Wall Street. It's been proven successful. I think we want to look at how this is expanded into the other markets And then I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at the wayfinding signs that we were able to install at the East Norwalk train station. But we'll have the entrance signs, signed pretty soon. We actually met with the sign company to do a mark out of the locations, to do call before you dig. But the signs that are up there right now, they really mimic those that we see in all the other train stations on the Metro North line. It really looks like a professional train station, right? It's just, giving really great guidance to parkers in a professional way. I'm really happy with how they came out. Next month, we should hopefully have the other signs in. We'll show you some graphics in there, but it's those things where we're just kind of in the midst of the year, still maintaining the same budget dollars that we allocated in the early part, but maybe changing them to what some of the priorities have been throughout this one. So just wanted to tie back in that. Other ones like security services, where we're seeing a variance, we're really monitoring the annual budget, and we are on track to maintain the annual budget. So we don't see too much of a challenge with that. We're really blessed with not a lot of snow removal, so we're going to have a considerable amount of savings to put into that. And we can go through some other things earlier, but we were on the screen, and I just wanted to mostly talk about the fleet. But Stop, you can continue. Oh, Judd has a question. I'm sorry.
Jim, you said that customer service vehicle isn't being used much anymore.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I think back in the day, we used to have someone who was going around, and I don't think it's been in use for a long time, right? So I don't think we're looking at I think we haven't had a need, we haven't seen it as a need. So I think really the direction I'd like the parking operation to go is where everyone is a customer service, where everyone is an ambassador, right? Where they could be, we're not relying on one person to go out there, but rather than the team really responding to the needs of the resident, of the constituents.
Okay, I hope we can make that happen. So,
Well, it's our desire and our move forward. I think we made a lot, we had a super successful event. And I think that more that we do that really sets a new tone, at the train station, with the St. Patrick's Day, not 4th of July, but yeah, I think it's going to take a while, but I think it's ultimately the best decision to have. Right.
mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. And Judd, yeah, I agree with Jim, and I think we can still maintain that level of customer service. Before, we had somebody dedicated to that, with roadside assistance, all that kind of stuff. But now, we still have that equipment. We can still handle that and still be efficient with it. So to Jim's point, we can put better use. We can put better use of that vehicle into converting it right now into enforcement and some other needs, before we start spending more money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, and then next page, let me analyze this. This is the full P&L, and Rocky added some column number or row numbers at the board's request. So when there's a question, you can you can point to the line item. There's revenue line items, expense line items, the city expense line items, and debt service, and another expense one for the capital reserve and replacement. So I don't have much to report on this other than the highlighted lines again are the ones that we covered in the variance report. So unless somebody has a question, I will move on. Okay, hearing none. Our pre-COVID report, our Emory report is below. Let me zoom out again so you can see that a little better. So compared to February of 2019, we're not quite at pre-COVID levels, on the revenue side, we're off about almost 4.5%. And expenses, though, on the positive side, we are below pre-COVID levels. So that is good. And system-wide activity is, you can still see it's following seasonal trends, but year to date we're almost at pre-COVID levels from the transient side, or basically at it at 1.4 below, and revenue is below, and some of that is coming from like the railroad station, and that when that comes back, we will see better results. Permit sales have remained consistent. Not much to see there other than here we are here as opposed to the last couple of years. On the on-street side, again, it seems to be following some seasonal trends and not much variation there. Activity was up 4%, 4.4% to be exact, and revenue was up compared to last year as well. As far as pay by cell transactions, we are seeing the average stay of about an hour and a half. So in the Sono area, that average transaction was $2.20. In the Wall Street area, that average was 80 cents for about the same time because of the the rate differential.
So Steffi, that $2.20 does not include the app fee, right?
Does what was that again, Eric?
The $2.20, does that include the fee for using the app, 30 cents or something?
No, it's not. That's just parking revenue. Excuse me 1 second, I'll close my door because there's somebody back. Okay, sorry. Cleaners were vacuuming the office. But when you combine them, the average system-wide is a little less than $1.43 or an hour. On the enforcement side, year to date through February, ticket issuance was down, although it is up from last month, and revenue was down almost 12% as well. Citation revenue accounts for almost a little under 20% of system revenue right now, and we still are seeing some collections from the collections program. And moving on to the JUD 1 report, we did see an uptick in the ratio of tickets issued to demands from last month. You can see it doesn't include the beaches, even though, like we were saying before, the ticket issuance was down, or demands were down. The ticket issuance was up. And Rocky, I don't know if what we could see on this is the JUD 2 report that shows by street and zone. So you can see from this current, the 5-year summary, and this is only expired meters violations. So we're seeing that there really hasn't been too much of a spike except in some smaller areas, but those don't account for a lot of citations. Orchard is up a little. Washington Street is down. And most others are,
Scott, why is Orchard Street so high? It's individual meters. I don't understand.
I'm gonna actually defer to Rocky if he knows. I don't know the answer specifically on Orchard. There aren't a lot of spaces there either, so fluctuations in that could abnormally make it look higher.
Chad, we did look into the high ticket areas, and most of the tickets are being issued after 5 p.m., 6 p.m. So most of people going to the dinner and that area are not actually paying at the meters. So enforcement actually is engaging the restaurants and just letting them know that they're in the area. So we're trying that on Orchard Street, on Main Street and Wall Street area, just to make sure that business owners and restaurants are aware that the enforcement guys are on that street. But we did notice some pickup for dinner time customers and bar crowds for the parking lots and around that are located within the bars area.
And Washington Street, most of the ticketing is in the evening?
Washington Street is equally spread out. It's a little bit higher in the evening, but it's spread out even during the daytime. But it's a mix daytime and everything.
And Wall Street is daytime, evening?
The Wall Street on the street, it's the evening crowd, and then the parking lots are bar goers, and then most of the tickets are being issued around 9:30, 10 o'clock. So we're assuming that those are people going to the bar, and there's a new bar that just opened up on at the corner of Wall and Commerce Street. So those people going into that area are not doing transactions in the parking lots. In Webster lot, there's a bar that opened up, and most of the bargaining and people going to that club they're not actually paying for the parking sessions.
Okay. Anything you can do about it?
The enforcement guys are actually educating even the especially by the Webster lot. They do have guards that are monitoring the bars, so they're actually engaging them and letting them know that as their customers come in, just to remind that if they pay the parking or not.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Then
Sorry, Stathi, just one more quick set of questions. So there's a fair amount of construction going on at Orchard and Quincy. Is the contractor paying any kind of bag fees over there as well? I mean, I know that you're saying the violations occur at night, but that may be as a result of the construction spilling over onto the street as well. Is that possible?
Matt, I was going to chime in there, and then we'll move to the next one too. I wanted to highlight, so we are seeing a lot more activity that's occurring over there because of the construction, and that's typically what we see is like construction guys will pop in for a little bit, and they'll go and we, they in a lot of instances, they get their company to pay for it. So this is not something that's going to be unique to Norwalk, unfortunately. But when I think that would probably call out, what's happening around the Orchard Street area, because we were over there, earlier and have seen a huge uptick in like that day parker that's going over there too. So
fair enough. It's good work. It seems like a fairly contained site, with the exception of kind of the spillover in Quincy and the data that you're showing today.
And Rocky, remind us again where the bag fees, the meter bag fees, where were they coming from?
Most of the bag fees are coming from Wall Street area. There's been a lot of construction in that area. And most of the bags are coming from I call it uptown, the Wall Street area.
Yeah, so it's not in this Orchard area.
Correct.
Then moving on to the last item, pay by cell report. Activity's just been continuously better and better, up 20% year to date. Revenue is up 30% year to date. Compared to pre-COVID, we are over. We're 108% compared to pre-COVID. And so that was, that's great news and great to see. The average transactions down for the month, but that fluctuates from month to month. But the interesting piece is that the pay by cell transactions represent an increasingly higher number of transactions compared to the system demands. So 24%, and the revenue represents almost 12% of system-wide revenue. So that is that's a great metric.
Stathi, am I correct in seeing in this report too that based on transactions made by cell, the average transaction payment is higher on a pay by cell transaction than in a pay on or than the system-wide average?
It is, yeah, I think it is. I can double check that. But it's definitely higher when we talk about pay by cell because it's credit card based. It's easier for people to pay more as opposed to, you know, cash, where you see the coin transactions, say at the meter or the pay stations are just lower. It turns like we said before, it kind of turns the gambler into the insurance buyer, so they buy more time. And let's see, that's it for the report. I don't know if Jim already has on his agenda, or you, Matt, to talk about the Customer Appreciation Day. I'll leave it to the two of you because you were both on fire giving out carnations.
I'll leave that to Jim if you want to touch on that when we get to new business, Jim.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, Stafi.
You're welcome.
So if there's no further discussion on that, we can move on to the engineering project report. Jim, looks like Haviland is up first.
Certainly. So, Staff, did you want to stop sharing your report, please?
Sorry about that.
I'll just put the agenda back up just so that you have it for this. But yeah, so these next two I can just run through relatively quickly and get it onto our guest this evening. But the Haviland construction projects, you know, in my review of the bids that came through, one of the contractors wasn't given you know all of the tasks. So when I went through apples to apples, we didn't have apples to apples, so I gave him the missing information on the throughput, the tunnel repairs. He's making those changes, and we'll get that. So by next month, I'll have the update for you on the direction for the Haviland construction projects and the Yankee Doodle facade enhancement. You know, we're still on track for where we are. I am meeting with you know, so THA is the firm that is doing the designs for us for the Haviland for the Yankee Doodle garage facade, but it's also in combination with our conditions assessment report that we're having Desmond do. Desmond is our on-call contractor for that. So they're going through. He is he found some issues that we need to address prior to the facade. So I actually am meeting with him next Friday, going over the preliminary report that we have. So again, more on that, but so far, you know, Yankee Doodle still on target to, you know, have the final plans for us in June, the June timeframe. So those are the real two quick things from the engineering report. I just wanted to jump into the new business, if I may, and introduce Brian Badoli. Brian Badoli is our executive director of the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency, and on here he also, I believe, has Henry Conroy is with Spinnaker, and they're going to talk with you about the 1517 Chestnut Street land disposition and the temporary parking for this is the the surface lot that is on the New Haven bound side of the Sono train station. So looking for them to give an update for you. Brian and I did touch base earlier. He's going to focus, pretty much of the discussion on the 1517 Chestnut. And I did ask Brian if he would come back next month and give us a further update to, what the goings on with the Webster lot, so that you guys, continue to be updated from that one. But not to conflate the two issues today, Brian, will just kind of focus in on the Chestnut Street issue. So Brian, I'll turn this over to you, and I will stop sharing in case you need to add anything to the screen. It'll be all yours.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you all. So as Jim said, I wanted to kind of talk to you all about the 1517 Chestnut project. It's the corner there of Monroe and Henry Street. I know we spoke a while back about it as we've been contemplating, or the city has been contemplating disposition of the area that encompasses 60 parking spaces in the surface lot at the South Norwalk train station. The concept, just to catch you all up, being that we would be replacing the spaces in the new structure, a 200-unit structure. And let me give me 1 second here. I'll try to make this so you all can orient it how I see it. So basically, what I wanted to come to you today with is the fact that the Common Council is advancing the discussion. They've scheduled a public hearing for April 6th. To effectuate the land disposition of this area to enable the development. As part of the process, we obviously wanted to confer with you all, making sure that everyone was aware of what was going on, even though we had talked about it a while back. But if you will recall, one critical component was the development of a temporary parking plan, as well as the long-term parking arrangement once the spaces are replaced and put into the structured garage. So we've been working closely with Jim Travers and the TMP to identify, the strategy around that. The key things obviously being what happens to the spaces during construction. So Spinnaker is fully committing to identifying a location within walking distance of the train station that will accommodate the 60 spaces. Subsequent to the conveyance of the actual property, which we actually don't expect to occur until after building permits are issued in terms of timing. And then once that temporary parking plan is in place and they have effectuated, and then they complete the construction, those spaces will be housed in the structure, as I mentioned, right here. So are you guys all seeing my screen? I could kind of walk you through what that all looks like. So this isn't really the development plan. This is actually, I just wanted to share with you the actual survey of the conveyance that is being contemplated by the city. So this is this current lot owned by Spinnaker at 15, or I think its address is 17 Chestnut right now. This is 30 Monroe, which is the whole lot, which the city currently owns. The grayed out piece is actually the land that would be conveyed as part of this transaction. So the way it would work, given the grade separation here and the elevation that you have, is actually all of the public parking would still be maintained on the second floor with ingress and egress right here. Sort of typical as they're currently accessing the site, and then the rest of the site would function off of Henry and Chestnut. But the parking garage entrance and egress would be here, sort of this general area. The one benefit that we all have as part of this, if you do recall, is we received a $6 million grant from the state of Connecticut to help with the infrastructure in the area. So that's going to help us do some work along Station Place here to accommodate these sort of changes, and as well as the other roads such as Chestnut and Henry. So I won't go into too much detail about the sort of arrangement. I think that might be better for Jim, because I know he has a keen eye on the operations. But as I understand, the idea is that the model for how the parking will be managed will be similar to the arrangement you've all recently negotiated in East Norwalk in terms of timing and operations, and then it will be serving more transient day parkers. But maybe Jim, do you want to cue in on that piece right there?
Yeah, so so we continue to work with legal through an agreement that would satisfy both users. I think what we're looking at now, I think one of the one of the initial plans that I saw has this new, let's say, Station Place that runs adjacent to what we're seeing as the brick building on the top of the screen. Initial concepts had that creating into a roundabout in the back, and that roundabout, in my view, was really eating up into some additional parking spaces. So we met with the Transit District Executive Director today, talking about what this could look like Stacy, you know, our view that we are challenging. So we have asked Brian under the redevelopment agency to fund plans. He's contracted with the VHB to really look at opportunities where we maximize the parking that exists here, and not only maximize parking, but that we should really be looking at this as in more of a comprehensive plan that addresses the kiss and ride, that addresses the Uber Lyft pickup and drop off, that you addresses taxi, addresses buses, since we have this as a multimodal hub, right? Really looking at this more comprehensive than simply just parking, but how it's going to really how the parking authority could foster better operations in this process as well. And we think foregoing a roundabout there, what we're looking to do is really get a station place that will go adjacent to where this grade area is up from Monroe Street, following that and then exiting onto Henry Street. So in more of a road pattern, and so that we actually minimize any disturbance for additional on-street, parking that's going to occur there. Spinnaker will be replacing the 60 parking spaces that they're taking or that they're procuring under this land disposition. They would still be required to provide those to the public for parking. The revenue would not go to the parking authority at that point in time because it would be their parcel, but we're ensuring that the agreement does keep a fair amount of parking available for riderships to the train stations. It's a vital component to the area here. But we continue to look at what are our opportunities to expand our parking footprint. Is there an opportunity to look into other parts of it here? How do we also better maximize what we have, right? And is what we, in this, we've kind of dealt with it where it was, but like, this is really an opportunity for us to look at how we could maximize this, but also look at how's this relationship happen when we have a private entity also providing parking adjacent to ours. We are putting some safeguards in there that the rate has to equal that of the parking authority rate, so that you're not going to have somebody who could potentially undersell their product to take customers away. So it will be an equal customer service experience. And then we're also looking at how does the parking authority also maybe play a role in the enforcement of those as well. So because I think that we're the only entity that has an opportunity to issue a parking ticket. Any private entity only has an opportunity to boot, tow, or barnacle the car, none of which are the best option for that. A parking ticket, as inconvenient as it might be, at least allows you to get in your car and go, versus barnacle, where you're gonna have to wait for someone to release it. So we're looking at how we can play a part of that operation as well. And still maintain some type of presence in the overall operation that's happening in the facilities. We're working with them on what does transient parking look like in the realm. It should be noted that the majority of this lot is dedicated to transient parking today, and we would be proposing that in the future, all of the lot is available for transient parking. We're also looking to ensure that the building's retail spaces are secured by additional parking that's suitable for their operation as well. But the transient, the parking in lieu of where when construction is away, we're looking at what other opportunities have, but also probably a better notification of addressing getting people into our garage. It's one of the issues that we really wanted to highlight, the signage that's going to be on MLK, where the garage is. We will do a lot more outreach to get them in the garage. We're lucky enough at where we stand right now is that while our permits are still in a good place in the garage, we're not seeing the full occupancy because people are not returning to the office on a 5-day work week right now. And as long as it maintains that way, we should be in a great position to support any disturbance that this has with moving the parkers into the garage. But we will do so in a manner that gives them adequate notice for anything that's going out there. Brian has been great to work with and navigate through this process, but I can only assure you guys, I think you know me and my relationship to what I believe our customers are, and the importance of them. We will, that will be in the forefront of what we look at going forward. We will ensure that, communication is top notch. I've asked Brian to play a role in coming to the board on a more regular basis to keep you guys informed of these, but I think, this is part of that, but I think it will be the first step of much more continuing conversations about what these land grants look like. But I turn it over to you guys if you have any questions for Brian and Spinnaker.
Just a couple of things, Jim. Brian, thank you. Thank you very much. So Jim, we need to track the impact of the loss of 60 spaces and understand what that means. And then your mentioning of the concept of the bus turnaround there and loss of parking, the impacts of all of that, whatever the final configuration is. This new line goes through the planted island, if you can see right there.
Yeah.
So it is a fairly big area of fairly big quantity of parking for this side of the train station that will be integrated into the project, which I think is great and it's the right thing to do. But I'm sure in your discussions that there'll be clear delineation that the public parking that will be available in the new garage is public parking and not Norwalk and not parking authority parking.
Yes.
So, if let's say somebody has a fender bender in there, they don't call the parking authority, they call the security company that's managing the garage, those sorts of things. That just need to be, ultimately, I'm sure they will be, very clear on the user side of sort of whose world they're in, and that. So that's really it. Just, I think the biggest thing is that we need to understand the impact of the loss of those 60 spaces, just to our operations.
Right. So I think we're, Eric, we are looking at a couple different models, right? One, really looking at, this is an opportunity to redefine what happens. I think the roundabout really, I think this is really an opportunity to us to look at almost this as a road network, right? And that, this is almost creating a station place and it's adding to that. But it's also allowing us to look at how we operate and operate a little differently, right? When I was talking to you before about, transient, we're doing a lot of study, we're doing a lot of look at what's the user over there today, right? And what's the user going to be when the environment changes, right? Because the agreement over here, or the development over here isn't really just apartments, right? But it's going to be, it's really where we're seeing a new realm that, we're introducing, other components. It's going to be a mixed use space, right? And there's going to be demands that are different, like what we're seeing happen in the East Norwalk train station, right? That there's residents over there, but there's also some viable businesses. Really, the pizza place coming up is really great. And then how do we support it, right? I think we support it by a model that's been proven to be effective in the other train stations in Metro North. And I do have a conversation quite often with the folks at Condot Rail. That model is really like we would have something where, from 5 to 10, this is really dedicated for those long-term parkers, right? So somebody who's going to be paying the day rate from 5 to 10. But you're not going to go into the city for all day at for your permit at 11, right? So from 10 on, maybe it's hourly rate, which is not what we've charged before, right? But if the lot has opportunity to put more people in it, we should be taking those opportunities and not just say like, this is your day rate, right? So the day rate would exist for the early morning to get those. And then after that, we open that lot up for any available spaces to be taken with the hourly space, and then that hourly space then moves us to our operation of 11 p.m. So it really then supports if there's a restaurant in here that's going to open for lunch, or if there's a restaurant that's there for dinner, how this parking lot could support the success of that, but and still look at operating it on a full scale basis versus, you know, what we've done in the past. So we do continue to look at those options. But again, a lot of that has to do with what we're going to see coming with the plans from VHB. And then understanding really what what VHB has been tasked with is, this is the land. How do we have the operations meet the needs? It's, you know, it's a roadway. It has to do, you know, we have buses that have to come down here. Your bus is, you know, a key in a multimodal transportation center, right? But also the land that we have left, how do we maximize the parking for that? And you know, and we will continue to do that. And I think that the best way to keep you guys informed is to continually have visitors such as Brian, you know, at our future meetings to keep you up to date on where we are with that.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you, Brian. Oh, Matt, I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to make one quick note. You know, Jim, I think that's all fair. And I think if Mulvoy Street can handle the offload of buses, that makes a lot of sense. But as someone who used to commute out of East Norwalk, and occasionally if I missed a train, South Norwalk, I recall just in the pre-COVID period that by 8 o'clock in the morning, there was 100% occupancy on both sides. And I would be parking all the way at basically on top of Henry or Mulvoy, right at the end of that lot where we're talking about potentially be a future roadway. And I, you know, I mean, I think the lack of permit holders you called out is kind of a short-term problem. I think, you know, that it is just that. I think it's short-term, and I would be concerned about our having sufficient capacity in the event that, you know, people do begin returning as we have, you know, more and more folks, you know, returning to commute.
Right. So I do think it's important to note that what, you know, that with the sale that the city has with the disposition of this land, it does affect 60 parking spaces, right? Those 60 parking spaces are going to be made up, you know, in the, you know, by the developer in perpetuity, right? So we don't, I think what we're really looking for is the net number of parking spaces to be the same, regardless of who is managing that space, right? But we're also trying to look, you know, so, and that's whether it's, you know, it does that, but we're also looking at, you know, operating differently, you know, what are our opportunities to do here? And I think that we always have to look at it, you know, at where we are, right? I think, you know, this was a good deal that the city made. You know, it's been in the works for, you know, prior to my arrival here. I think we're just looking at, you know, how do we then maximize the amount of space that the city maintains in its parking structure here? And then are there, you know, what are the opportunities to advance this in the future? You know, we're also looking simultaneously at how we introduce like a residential parking zone in here. So that we can really define what are the parking areas for commuters and making sure that, you know, that doesn't disturb daily life for those that live near the train station. But your concerns are heard, and you know, I think I do think it'll still continue to come back more, but I do think that the days of 5-day work weeks are probably, you know, non-existent. So we haven't met capacity in the garage. So I think we still have an opportunity to do that. And I think we still continue to look at what like shared parking would be with other development that happens, and really kind of, you know, addressing our parking supply, you know, not within you know, like a unified type of model that, you know, where it just stays there, but where we could have like, you know, it used like, you know, more 24 hours a day type of thing. So it's a new world for us. So I think we're just trying to learn our way through, I think.
Yeah. But the objective being the no net reduction. So Judd, I
Just,
see you.
yep. So I'm clear, in the simplest form, this area in gray is currently owned by the city, and through the LDA, we're selling this to Spinnaker, basically, correct? Is that my correct understanding, Brian?
Correct.
Okay,
Oh, God, it doesn't matter.
So we are selling it to Spinnaker, but with a land development agreement that requires them to provide the parking spaces.
yep, okay, and what is that sale price?
Fair market value, so it's appraised at 4.6 million.
So that's roughly the sale price.
Yeah, that's a sale price. And there's a number of just sort of, credits that are obviously contemplated. It's contaminated property. So we have a brownfields grant that's going to cover a portion of that.
Uh-huh,
And then also the construction of the 60 parking spaces actually exceeds the value of the cash flow you all receive there. So we did an analysis to actually take a look at that. The city is contributing basically, it was about a $2.1 million cost, which is 60 spaces at $35,000 per space for structured parking. So the city is contributing technically 1 million of that, but fortunately the grant that we receive is actually offsetting that cost to the city of the 6 million. So it's a nice financial plan for us, given the fact that there's some state assistance in the process.
Or something, well, anyway, because.
and Spinnaker cannot do their next phase of Chestnut Street without this property?
I think that
Much
part of
smaller.
it, Judd, is, if I could just
Sorry.
jump, Judd, I think that part's done. I mean, the arrangement, I just don't want to go down that rabbit hole. If that deal is done.
Okay, I just want to understand it, Eric. That's-
Yeah.
I remember nobody else who's on the board now was here, but Spinnaker presented this 5 years ago. And in fact, I don't think even Spinnaker owned the property. It was Byfield and Mr. Brown who owned the buildings along there. So I remember that, but I just want to have a clear understanding of this. So I'm sorry if I didn't pick it up through all the discussion, but.
No. It's totally fine.
I mean, that's why they're here, so we can understand it. So if I have questions, I need to ask them.
Yep, no, absolutely.
Okay. So this is a done deal, is then?
What do you mean in terms of done deal?
Well, I mean, the 4.6 million is agreed upon and the sale is going through, or it's?
Yeah, so what occurred is the first step was actually getting authorization based on all these details by the city council, which occurred about a year ago.
Okay,
We've already had an LDA term sheet that did frame out the deal, yes. There's
okay,
been a number of assessments and due diligence that's kind of refining the deal, and that's what we're going for to do the final contemplation of the city council on April 6th.
And that's, well, that's the other.
And that'll enable the 200 units, so it creates obviously a larger development pad to, maximize the development potential right there by the train station to help, bring together some of our TOD goals and the POCD and all of that.
mhm. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Judd. If there's no further discussion, Brian, thank you very much for this update. And definitely, I think it's a great idea if you're able or a representative to to attend or participate in our meetings frequently, so that we can hear this sort of information and understand what's going on here and around the other assets as well.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. I think it's just necessary. We're talking about these infill opportunities for the betterment of everything. I just want, the devil's always in the details. So the more input we could have, the better. So I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Jim, is that everything for Brian?
Yeah, so that is everything for Brian. Brian, thank you. Henry, thank you. I think this, to Judd's point before, this was brought to the parking authority a long time ago, right? We haven't had an update since I've been here, right? And really what I asked for is, like, I do think to Judd's point, you're like, oh yeah, all this came through, but I don't remember, right? You're not going to remember because it happened a long time ago. So if we have more frequent updates, we're asking you guys to manage an asset on behalf of the city. And, I think what I've asked Brian to do is just participate in the conversations, just to keep you guys up to date what that is. You just have to, in order to make the decisions you need to to maintain the state of good repair in these facilities, you have to, know the full picture, right? So this is my intent, to try to get you the full picture of it. Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Brian.
I didn't know anything about it, so he has it.
All right. Let me just get back to sharing screen here. All right, so the next in line on the new business is, Judd, you had asked for courtesy cards to be put onto the agenda for a discussion item. You're on mute, Judd, if you're talking. I wasn't sure if your lips were moving or not. I was like, is he trying to formulate? And then I realized, oh, he's red, okay.
So, in the past, we used to give out courtesy cards. I think we ended up giving away too many, but I think they often build a lot of goodwill. So I thought it would be a good idea to start giving them out again. After I brought that up, Jim, you talked about the reverse angle parking, that most of the contested tickets are in the Wall Street area are related to that. I thought if we could do a test period, and I know that's going to go away eventually. And I think you're making a presentation a little further down the agenda here related to that. But to me, to grind out all the striping for the reverse angle parking, restripe for the parallel, I mean, I'm sure that's thousands of dollars, and only to have it all ripped out in a year or so when the Wall Street sidewalks get widened. I thought if we had a courtesy card that was specific to these reverse angle parking people who are parking wrong, we could educate them and build some goodwill. I don't know if that makes sense, what I just said.
So I was just gonna say, so Judd, are you making a suggestion that you're asking us to act on, or what?
No, I'm just open for discussion about it. So,
Okay,
I'm all for the wider sidewalks that are coming down the, on Wall Street area. I just don't want to see us waste $10,000 to grind out everything, for a year when we could fix this initial problem with some courtesy cards, I think.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think that, so there's a couple of different things that I want to make sure. So discussions items are just this for this, right? To talk about an item and to talk about what plans are to move forward, right? I hear you, right? I think what we could do is come back to you with what the actual costs would be for the removal and restriping into parallel spaces. We'll have Greg, our transportation planner, put up what that would look like, and so we can get the real number, right? I don't know, quite honestly, if courtesy cards fixes this problem, right? Because what we're seeing is the majority of the tickets are issued in here, and that's pretty much a stick, right? They're getting it, and we're still we've had them in place now for 2.5, maybe 3 years, right? And 3 years later, with the tickets issued, we're still seeing this as the #1 challenge that exists, right? I've met with BJ Ryan's, Bankhouse, and he probably is a restaurant that stands to benefit the most from angle-in parking, because it's all the spaces that are in front of his shop. And he said, look, I don't see any other way besides just getting rid of them, right? Because I think the courtesy cards for this become somewhat of a challenge, right? Because as we will talk about in old business, we will talk about the 15 minutes. So we're looking at, if I can conflate some issues now, we're looking at an opportunity where people will have the opportunity for free 15 minutes at the beginning of a session, and then to do the courtesy card for another one. It's just like we have a lot of programs on there that are about not paying for parking in a paid parking model, right? So I think those issues but I do think you have valid points of needing to understand what the value is in the costs associated with that, and we didn't give that, so we could give that to you for next month and still keeping it
Yeah, Jim, I was talking about a courtesy card specifically for the people who pull in nose forward, so to speak, as back in. And I don't know if you saw the email I sent to you yesterday. You took our standard courtesy card and I just altered the language on it.
I unfortunately, I didn't. I have been in meetings since 8 o'clock, back-to-back meetings from 8 o'clock. I'm still here, as you see, like, you know, I have not had 1 minute for emails yet today. It was a pretty rough day.
All right. I'm not, I mean,
I'll look at that.
yeah, how do I share my screen here?
I have to stop sharing. And so you can have it then.
And
You're gonna talk to who?
yeah, I had this, okay. So that's our standard courtesy card there, right? That's what they look like. I'd never seen one till yesterday. Had anybody else?
Yep, we can see
All
it.
right. Yeah,
Okay. You know, I altered it a little bit. It may not be perfect, but you just change the language to it. So it says, you know, we noticed you parked incorrectly. These parking spaces are for back-in parking only. Please turn your car around and back into the space. We've added an additional free 20 minutes. Now, maybe we don't need to add that, but I know one of the issues would be, how do you, I believe when you add these 20 minutes, Rocky or Staffy, you could
Also the one, yes.
correct me on this if I'm wrong. Does that get logged into the system so we know who we've given these courtesy cards to?
So I did check with Rocky, or the system won't, so if we issue it, if we issue a citation itself, right, even a 0 citation, then that has, but we don't have an ability then to turn around and monitor who got that site. The system won't know automatically that you've already gotten a citation and the next one is a ticket.
Okay, I see.
It's, yeah, it doesn't have that ability. But if we issued if we'd issued a $0 citation, it would have a record of that, but not a record that would indicate the ability for the officer to issue a ticket on the second offense.
So it's that way with the regular courtesy card too.
Yes.
I see. Okay, all right. Well, you know, if you can get us an estimate about the cost of that, I'd be interested to see, so.
Okay, all right, then we will hit that when we get down to the old business.
Okay.
so I think, and certainly everybody else chime in. Pam, Peter, do you guys have any thoughts on this? Matt?
Yeah, I was, seeing people park still wrong all the time. And I hear Judd, to spend money in a relatively short term is not the way to go. But it's just frustrating to see those people continually park the wrong direction. I've seen them grind out those white lines pretty darn quick, but probably they've got to change signage. They've also probably got to, maybe they have some bolsters or whatever you call those poles that are there in certain spots. I'm not sure how involved that is, if they can leave those intact and just change signage in the white lines. But those scrapers, I've seen them pave things and scrape up lines within 6 months, because they didn't quite do it. I think they did that in Webster Street lot, actually.
Yeah.
I was just there. That was paved relatively soon, and then they scraped up the lines that they laid down. So I think they do oops quite often, but it goes under the radar, and that's okay by me. But I think to scrape up the lines is maybe not so big a deal.
Plus two, since we're looking at a particular window of time for when the big project happens, maybe there's a coating or something that could go over those zones that would address it. So maybe, Jim, as you guys look at it, maybe there are other things that could happen as opposed to scraping it out, and then redoing the whole thing in a year or so.
Yeah, we'll look, we can address this when we do old business, and we hit the line item, but I could certainly take as a takeaway to give you the cost of what it would be to come back. I'm happy to do that. But, you know, I think to share Peter's, you know, we're trying everything we could do to get them, like, they're just doing it, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's frustrating for them, right? They're getting a ticket, right? You know, and I think we need to simplify something. I just don't know any other way.
One other thing, I want to thank Rocky. He met me down there last Saturday. He was not working. He came home, and I looked at the signage for the reverse angle parking. And I have to say it's pretty poor. It's one direction. It's only for the cars following the way you would back in. I don't know how else to put it. So if you're coming from the other direction, you don't really see any signs that tell you that it's reverse angle. So, you know, there's, by adding 3 signs down there, you could improve this, I think, a lot. So Rocky, we talked about that. And
Yes, Chad, we did, and I did sit down with Jim, and we're gonna put those signs. There's an existing pole, so we're gonna post those signs
okay.
on the back and angle spaces. And I came in that Saturday because you bought me coffee.
Okay. Well,
So
thank
we'll
you.
get this, we'll get the signs up, you know, immediately. So there's something there in the interim, but, you know, signs are not, I think people are not to getting it, right?
Yeah.
No,
I know it's hated. So I just don't want to waste $15,000, you know, for.
I don't think it's $15,000, but I think what we have here is, you know, it's not a monumental thing. It's you know, people are frustrated about something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know that. Listen.
I think it's our responsibility, my responsibility to bring to you when we see that, you know, when we have appeals and the number one appeal that people are making or coming in here are for this reverse angle parking.
Yeah.
You know, I think I want to lessen that, right? Because that's what if they're coming in here, they're already angry, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to try to.
I want to lessen it too. That's why we have the Judd report. My main concern with the parking authority is to get compliance and not ticketing. So.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I have a note. I will come back with you with numbers.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
The next one, Judd, you wanted the discussion of the NRVT grand opening. I think that changed somewhat now, right? So.
The data that changed again?
Well, we don't have a grand opening.
Okay, I was told it's May 6th.
So the NRVT and the Bike Walk Commission want to do an event on May 6th that just highlights the NRVT portions, but we are not ready for a phase 2 grand opening on May 6th. That we will not make that date.
Okay.
So what I've said is, you know, the city has to release what the date is for the grand opening. So they still want to go forward with their event that highlights the portions of the NRVT that are open. But this section, you know, that brings us up to 123 is not ready yet. We are still in communication with the contractor and should not be doing a grand opening until we, you know, can do it in its entirety.
Okay, so when we know that date, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
All right.
The next item was a discuss and vote for an amnesty program. We had talked about this before, right? So sorry, I'm just getting over a little cold, right? So an amnesty program that we're proposing, you know, we're looking at a time frame of when we could do this. I believe Staffy has some numbers to present to you, but we would look to begin this on May 1st. We would run this for 3 months. It is a proposal of removing all late fees for older tickets, right? And you know, I think this is just an opportunity to offer people to get through some of the old debt that we're having a harder time collecting, right? And I think in parking, we do see fees that go up, in a short order, because we know that the longer time that a ticket remains unpaid, the less likely it is that it does get paid. Amnesty programs have been shown to be very successful in some other communities. We think that it's a way to present, again, goodwill, right? We understand you had a problem, right? Maybe you got yourself into such a problem that you're seeing the ticket escalate, and now you just can't do it. So we want to offer these folks an opportunity to, again, pay your original fine. We're going to keep it open for 3 months. We're going to send the communications. We believe that we're going to see some positive gain that comes from this based on other communities that Duncan has done and that has given some examples of into the homework. So Stafi, I could stop if I share, I'm not sharing, right? So do you have that? Do you have the numbers up, Stafi? Can you share something?
Can share the screen, the kind of the write-up of it.
Yes.
So can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so it would basically be a 3-month program, and it would only be it would be open to everybody, the entire population of delinquent citations, but notices would only be mailed to citations that were delinquent within the last 5 years. And that's what they recommend and programs have seen to have the most success. So there's over 89,000 tickets that are open right now in the city, but the ones that would be applicable to the amnesty would be, or the ones that would be mailed would be these 10,713 citations at the time this was run. So the fines that are due are 474,000, but what would be waived would be 100% of the late fees. So the way it would work, they, from their experience, mailing to these citations would yield about a 7% collection rate, which would yield about 33,000. The estimated costs on the mailings and collection fees are about 8,000. So the net collections would be about 25,000. It would be goodwill, as Jim said. It would also help clear up a lot of these outstanding citations, because I don't know what the city's policy is, but it's very difficult, it seems, for cities to write off these citations because it's not necessarily considered debt. It's uncollected revenue. But anyways, this would be a one-time program, and that's how it would work. So the flow, just so you know, is that people that are issued citations during the amnesty program, the late fees won't accrue. They'll still get the discount if they pay it early within 24 hours, and they won't pay the late fees if they pay it during the amnesty program. But at the end of the amnesty program, that's when the clock will start ticking on the accrual of late fees and penalties. And that's really it. So there would be a public relations piece to this, of course, and an outreach through the website, through Snyder Group, and an email campaign, and any way we can get the word out.
What's the alternative?
The alternative is really the same collections program that they have and that we do now, and that's basically continued notices. But once they get past a certain number, you're not spending money on sending notices to a ticket 2 years old, because you're never going to collect on it. So the only other way is if you want to do a program of outbound calls, because Duncan is a certified collection agency, and that's the next process. So they do some of that in their daily course. Anyways.
Hey, Stafi. So what about a middle ground here, right? So I think the intent here, or my intent here, would be to really look at the $7 million in uncollected revenue, right? And but also from a goodwill if somebody had a hard time. But maybe is there a middle ground where we could still look like, I don't know that I necessarily would want the ongoing, the initial citations that are happening now to be exempt from, I would like them to be exempt from the amnesty program, right? So that we still look at collecting them. I don't want to get ourselves back into issues. So maybe it's like for, the amnesty programs for any ticket that's issued 6 months or older, right? So that your current tickets will still hit delinquency, right? We're just, is that an opportunity? I'm a little worried that we if your new tickets don't have, are in an amnesty program and then you don't pay them, right? So if you have your $25 parking ticket that all of a sudden become, that you don't pay and you're like, oh, there's an amnesty program, there's no late fees. I'm not going to pay it now because there's not that stick, right? That's in place. And then you forget about it because I forget about everything if I don't do it then, right? And then I wait 3 months with the amnesty program and then that ticket becomes 200 and now I can't pay it.
So yes, I mean, I think we'll ask Duncan, but it may be a system limitation. That may be the only reason, unless Rocky, you
Okay, all right.
answer. I'm not sure if that's this.
Jim, we did ask Duncan for this, and the counting starts right after the 90 days. So if you've gotten a ticket on let's say we started on May 1st, and you got a ticket on May 1st, your late fee escalation will not start until the end of that 90 days.
Yeah, but Rocky, what Jim is saying is those tickets, let's not look at tickets from the last 5 years. Let's look at them from maybe, 6 months ago and go back 5 years. So the tickets that were already issued within the last 6 months would still
fall under the current escalation process for collections.
So I think we need to ask that question to make sure
Sure.
that that's, possible. So we'll put that on our.
So if we start the amnesty period from 6 months ago and then go back, the balance of the 5 years, and someone does not get caught up, does that mean they have amnesty forever or?
No.
Oh, it is within that 3-month period. They need to pay within that 3-month period.
Okay, or it comes back.
Otherwise, amnesty programs are not have the opposite effect. If people think that they have it forever, or that this is going to be a program that you repeat every few years, they're just not going to pay their citations. So this is really a one-time thing that doesn't really happen again until Jim retires.
Yes. I think you've really got to explain that to the public. I mean, we're trying to grasp it or put a policy about it, but those people have to know if they haven't paid that bill for 3 years, that they've got this one shot. It's got to be really promoted all, exactly what you're saying, whether it's mail or email or text or whatever it happens to be, because we've all seen those on TV. Whether it was the IRS saying those things or the Connecticut Department of Revenue, you've got a window here, and it's really, really strict because you're giving it to a collection agency, and the collection agency is probably making, I don't know, 30% or 50% or whatever they collect. So they really don't want these amnesty programs. They probably want to be able to, that's how they make their money. So I would promote it heavily and try to get as much as you can during that amnesty program. Goodwill, I mean, people are hitting hard times, especially pandemic and so forth. I mean, it's huge what that pandemic did to people. So I'd be trying to give the people a break as much as possible.
So Peter, I think that our thought too, right? Find some way to, if you got yourself in trouble, how we can help you get out. I think what we found tonight, and these are what these really great sessions are, right? We need to do a little bit more homework. We're obviously not going to make them May 1st. We'll continue this on the agenda for a vote next month, and we'll look at this as like a June 1st, right? But we'll get you what some of the sample communications are, and I just want to find out. I don't want to offer something as a means of goodwill when it also has, when it potentially can have a negative effect, right? So if, like, I do think that, those fines and escalations really prompt you to pay your ticket, right? But if you forget, if that's on hold for 3 months, right? You're gonna forget it, and then all of a sudden it triples, and then you're in trouble and you can't get yourself out, and we created that. So I don't necessarily want an amnesty program that's for tickets that are being issued during the program, right? I want to find some type of cutoff that allows those to still escalate, but
Yeah,
if you
like the past
problem-
first of the year, like 2022. I mean, there's a cutoff right there. So you've got 90-day windows after that right now. And then everything, and you can blame it on the pandemic. Everybody blames thing on the pandemic. So you say it hit so many people so hard. So you spin it any way you want, but it's to get some money and give people a window. It's a win-win.
What about doing this and not making it a big PR thing? But what about doing it and just deal directly with the ticket holder? And it seems like the issue is between the ticket holder and the parking authority, not somebody who doesn't have an outstanding ticket. So it might get complicated by trying to turn this.
I agree with you. It's just that if these people are down and out a little bit, they may not have the same address. They may not have the same phone number. They may not have that car anymore. I mean, it's people are hit on hard times, so it may not be so simple. If it was so simple, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So I can't say that those citations, so Duncan does do skip tracing. So people who do move, they've already sent notices to, they have their registered owner information. So there isn't any more to do. It's going to be to delinquent ticket holders, that they have on file.
Well, and then you mentioned earlier, Stati, about how difficult it is for, to deal with uncollected revenue as opposed to a loss of income. And the big number there is obviously 900,000. So Jim, is this, aside from the value of the fine, what sort of liability is the 900,000 to us?
So there's really no liability, right? Because it is uncollected revenue, not debt, right? The liability really has, it could be on the person who was issued the ticket, right? Because if you have a number of unpaid parking tickets, it can affect your ability to re-register your car, right? And to Peter's point, sometimes people just fell on a little bad luck, right? And so, sometimes people don't understand that has a longer term effect on them. And then sometimes you just build up this and it becomes, I think there's also some people that just want to do the right thing and they want to pay, but they want to be able to pay the original fine, right? And I do think that there's a value of getting it out. I think you have to get the word out in a PR campaign. I think one, it does recognize the fact that we are doing something that is helpful to people, but Peter had a really valid point. Like, people move around, right? Somebody who's not paying their parking ticket very well may be a transient person who has a number of things. It's harder to find. Maybe they don't know. This would be an opportunity for them to, do I have a parking ticket? Let me go in there. Oh, I do. Let me pay it, right? Community after community has seen positive results from running amnesty programs. I didn't know if somebody said that. So I do think there's a benefit to do it. I do think that we need to come back to you with some further information. I want clarification of when the program would run. I am concerned that new ticket holders could get themselves into trouble, and it would not be our intent to do that. But we do see as opportunity to collect on some other funds without having it turned over to some hardcore collection agency that's going to collect they're going to collect their portion of it anyway, right? why don't we just give that opportunity to the person? And you know, if that's what we're gonna see as a net, let's give that opportunity to the person and before that happens.
Yeah,
But-
okay.
And if I
Matt, I
understand,
see your hand.
if I understand right, then we're gonna look at whether we could run the program on citations, basically, like Peter was saying, from 2018 to 22, the calendar year. Be
Well,
five.
we'll look at that and we'll come out, Sappy, we could be, but I know that Matt and Pam have their hands up. I want to make sure that they have their time. So Matt? Or Pam? Pam? He's deferring to you first.
Yeah, I had to unmute. Years and years ago in my accounting history of my work history, I worked in a collection agency. The collection agency is 55%, some of them even 60%. And then they tack on other fees. So if the less you can get turnover to a collection agency, the better we are. The other thing is you want to get this out to the public via social media and whatever way you want, because more than likely, if this ticket is 2 to 3 years old or 2 years old, the 2-year-old, the oldest tickets, those people just, they're not even going to open up the amnesty letter. They're just going to think it's the ticket. They're just going to throw it out. So you do want to have some kind of social media out there. And in that social media, you have to specify these are for tickets that are older than tickets that were issued between the years of this and this. And that's how you solve your problem with the current people not holding on to their ticket and waiting for it to become amnesty. You have to specify what the dates are that this amnesty covers. And that's the only way to handle it.
Yep.
And therefore you won't, new people won't get caught up in it.
Yeah.
It won't apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say.
All right, we will, we heard, we'll come back with you with some numbers of what that looks like. Matthew?
Thanks. So just to be clear, people will be paying Duncan, not the parking authority. Is that what I'm hearing?
So they'll have the opportunity to come in to pay at the parking authority, but they'll be able to pay online.
Okay. And so other than the mailer, what's the anticipated cost that Duncan is figuring into their deduction?
That's really the cost of the mailer. That's all we're really looking at for this.
Okay. Okay, good. I just want to just kind of be clear and transparent that, you know, so that the end user or the violator gets the feeling that they're actually paying the city or the parking authority. And especially if they come in and pay in person. So just thinking about, you know, 474, which is the last 5 years, that's opportunity, right? And so we want to capture as much as that as possible. 932 is, you know, kind of more or less Duncan's success fee, right? Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Well, they don't get that much. We still get some portion of that, but I think we're still saying that, you know, they wouldn't get any of it, you know, so they don't get any of it. They're, you know, you know, so, you know, they would, yes, under the normal collection process, they start to eat away at some of that, but this is, you know, there's, you know, that's kind of void in this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
That's included in the estimated costs. So they're still, you know, collecting their normal collection fee that they would. And that's built into those numbers that I showed you before. And just one clarification, if I could, because this would still be open to the entire population, because as you were saying, you want to get rid of as many and close out as many old citations as you can. It's just that the mailers would only go to the ones within the last 5 years or whatever time period you want. Because otherwise you're spending good money after bad on mailing costs for citations that will really have a highly unlikelihood of being paid.
Okay, so, so it sounds like there'll be more to come on this later.
So we will revisit this. I know that we've been on here for a long time. We'll revisit this and we'll give you better detail in advance, taking into consideration all the dialogue that took place tonight. And we'll come back for a vote for next month.
Okay,
Okay,
great. Thank you, Jim.
all right.
So if you could get the agenda back up.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay,
So the old business, Jim, you're up on that.
yeah, so the old business, just wanted to keep this on, the free 15-minute option, so we, Rocky, when do we anticipate the new meters to come?
Jim, the first shipment will happen on the 27th of March and the second one on 2nd of April. So full installation will start April 10.
Okay, so just to keep you on board, can't do anything until we get the new meters in there. So we're looking at new meters starting to install on April 10th. They will go consistent to what we have. We would just do that as as the after all the meters are rolled out, so it could be on a time thing, but not able to roll it out until new meters there. So that just maintains an item for just kind of update until it happens. And that also again goes into the next item that we had, which is the delivery. So the delivery is looking to start. This has been a long time coming, right? For the people around, we're really certainly faced with the challenges of getting equipment as well. So we're very happy when this one gets there, right? The next is the update with the coffee shop lease. I got the lease back from legal today. After I finish tonight, I will send it over to the property manager to move on that. And then I know that she wants to do a walkthrough of the space. Sarak was working at just updating the last few items that we had to prep the space where the leak had occurred for our previous tenant not let us know. We're having that taken care of. And then we also did meet with the new windows because they had items on the windows, so that when we replaced all the windows that had broken seals, you'll recall earlier in the contract with Capasso, we didn't get these because we couldn't see the windows for all the stuff they had on the windows. So we will get those windows taken care of as well. Judd, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, last month about the new pay stations, you mentioned something about they have a halo or something over them, I recall.
Yep, yes.
Is that a light to light them up at night or?
Yeah, yes. So it's a blue light that goes around, so it becomes much more visible. It's a product that the manufacturer has really claimed much success in people identifying where the pay stations are. So you'll be able to look down the street and see those. So yes, there'll be that halo on all of the pay stations moving forward. So
right, okay.
The next item, we could table that as well. I know that I owe you some costs. We will get that on and maintain that on there. The item E was your discussion and vote. We had that as a discussion item last week.
Hey, Jim, could we vote that, do we all agree that we want to get rid of the angled parking, at least take action on that much of it?
Judd, you're the one that raised it, so.
No, I'd like to see what the cost is to take it out.
So I think what you could do, Chairman, is you could vote, it raise to a vote. If you get enough votes, then it goes forward. If you don't, then I come back next month. So I'm happy to do whatever you want.
Peter, I think you.
Yeah, I agree to get rid of it, and I agree with Judd that we don't want to pay an arm and a leg, so on both points. I just don't see it. And Jim, maybe you know far better. I don't see it being that expensive to remove those lines.
I don't think it's that expensive either, sir.
Well, what do you mean? I mean, listen, if it's 1,500, 2,000, yeah, that's okay, but. it's-
I think you're in the thousands. I think you're the $2,000 to $3,000 at max.
So if it's under $5,000, maybe we should.
All right, there you go. Great. How about that?
So we don't want to wait a month to find out.
So I think what you could do is you could vote to remove the reverse in angle parking if the line striping costs are less than $5,000. If they're over $5,000, then I come back to you.
Well, you're going to give us the estimate either way, right? I mean, listen, I'll tell you, I had a lot to do with getting the angled parking implemented. I was totally opposed to the back end. I wanted the forward. The big reason I wanted the angled parking years ago was to narrow the street and slow it down. So that, my big concern about taking out the angled parking is we end up with a highway running down Wall Street for the next couple of years till it goes in. So,
Judd, I hate to tell you, it's a highway now. It really doesn't matter. It's not good. So,
I mean, Jim, if you can, when you restripe it, if you can stripe an island down the center that narrows the street to 10 feet, our new standard, I'm all for it.
Okay, but I have to say one thing, and with all due respect, Judd, the role of the parking authority is to understand parking. My role is to understand what happens in thing. I think we're conflating the two when we look at what that is. I think our vote tonight is really about what is the impact of parking. I think presented to you is the angle in parking is presenting a challenge to our users, right? I understand that we have a long thing, but we're looking at a longer term solution for Wall Street. It has challenges that I can't fix and that have not been fixed with reverse and angle parking, right? So I think we have it, like our users are telling us there's a problem. And I think that we have an obligation to listen to them.
Okay.
So, Matt, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve to the removal of reverse and angle parking in the event that the line striping cost does not exceed $5,000.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this further? May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Peter and Pam seconded it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There. So it's a unanimous decision. Thank you. All right. So at least we can manage future agendas a little bit less.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir. The next item was the one that we talked about. We made the dollar minimum on credit card charges, but we did not make that dollar minimum on the Park Mobile charges, and we're seeing credit card, our credit card fees often in excess of the 25 cents that they're throwing on Park Mobile. And we wanted to just move forward with our Park Mobile minimum at $1 as it is for your normal credit card transaction. If you want to see what those fees are, we could run through a presentation. Staffy has that, or we could always run through a presentation on credit cards later. But I think we all know that our fees to process certain credit cards. When we get credit cards that have rewards, those aren't just given by the bank. Those fees are transferred over to the entities such as us, right? We pay a higher credit card fee for those. So some of our credit card fees are coming in excess of the money that we're getting in. So it actually costs us money for someone to park. And we want to avoid that by the $1 Park Mobile minimum that matches the credit card minimum. So that's the item in front of you for a vote today.
Is there discussion on this? Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. A second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pam. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. And last item.
Last item was a repeat on my error. I apologize. I listed it under new business. and old business. Because it should have, like, it should have been under old business, but we discussed it under new business, but we know what that takeaway is and we'll get it. So that's the last items that were on your agenda. So my apologies for that error.
Okay, excellent, no problem. Well, thank you, everybody. We've had a pretty long discussions here. This was a great meeting. Covered a lot of ground, and it's all good. It's all good work. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
I'll second
All
it.
all in favor?
Aye.
And unanimous. Okay, terrific. Have a terrific evening, everyone.
Have a
All
good
right,
night.
Thank you, you too.
Have a good one.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you.